All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get started. If somebody will pull that door closed for me. Thanks, Ashley.
The gong show.
That's all right. I don't have a gong. Things have gotten so much more less graceful than I sat there doing it. I was just much sweeter. Ask Rich. That wasn't sincere. All right, thank you for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do is, this is going to be a work session mostly for members of the committee. If there's questions, I know most of you are here from the agencies and from the schools and that kind of thing. We're just going to walk line by line through the budget units that we have responsibility for and just talk about some of the things that are recommended. We're going to probably vote on the big budget next Friday, I think is what I'm hearing. I believe, isn't that what you're getting as well? We'll probably have one more meeting next week with this subcommittee to take the actual vote. What I want to accomplish here, though, is I want the members of the committee to have a chance to talk about some of these recommendations that are in here from the governor's office, some of the recommendations that I've collated from the systems and from others and other representatives in other areas, and any that you see. I mean, we all realize that, especially with the regions, it's an allocation or a lump sum allocation. So there'll be some language and just some discussion as well. I know we have people from all of the different agencies here, from TCSG and Regents and GPTC, I suspect, and some of the schools themselves. So if you need a question answered, I'll make sure that they're here for that today. So let's you all have your track sheets on House Bill 44. So why don't we'll just get started, and I'll just step us through this as we work. The very first section is 41.1. That's the agricultural experiment station. And what you see here, there are, you're going to see one specific M&O recommendation. This comes from the chairman of the committee, Mr. England. This is it was actually new to me today, but it goes along with what he's been trying to put together over the last few years. We've been adding positions, but now, and he and I very much agree that it's time to do some repair and renovations and M&O in this. So you can expect a $4.12 million recommendation on maintenance and operations to help these facilities meet their functions. That'll be coming from Chairman England. I haven't received any other particular request in that section. The rest of it, you'll see language in each of these. Obviously, the merit-based pay adjustments, adjustment employer share, merit-based pay transfer funds. That's pretty much standard language that we do each year, and you'll see those. I'm not going to spend time in each of those, especially increasing the share for the employer health insurance. And the personal services is the one section here is that the 1 quarter that we didn't. We're in 41.15. We increased funds for personal services to annualize the ruminant nutritionist and the row crop physiologist positions. If you'll remember, last time we did 3 quarters of those just because of the budget cycles. This is the final 1 quarter of those positions funding that has to be done. Any questions in 41.1? 41.2 is the Athens TIF Vet Labs. You just have your continuation funding there, and there were no recommendations from the governor's office, and I haven't received any recommendations. Any members of the committee gotten anything there? Just stop me. I mean, this is a work session. I don't if I've missed anything. Under cooperative extension in 41.3. You have the standard language, and then you'll also see in 41.3.5, that's positions it's just a transfer from State Soil and Water Conservation Commission program in the Department of Agriculture. And then the final one, and this is again the quarter personal services for these positions that we put together last year, the viticulturist, the grain crop agronomist, and the vegetable pathologist. I need to finally fund the final 0.25% there. Let's see, there's also, is there a B budget piece in their recommendation? All right, this is a secondary budget recommendation. Also, this is the second half of the maintenance and operations recommendation from Chairman England, and it's for in the Cooperative Extension Service repair and renovation, and that'll be a recommendation for $2.14 million. And that'll be in line 41.3. Any questions on that? Those are both recommendations from Chairman. Okay. 41.4 in the Enterprise Innovation Institute. I haven't received anything other than the governor's recommendations. I'm not recommending any changes there to date. Okay. 41.5 Forestry Cooperative Extension. Have a you've got your regular language. I've got a request, and these are B budget type requests for funds for a network administrator for the Center for Invasive Species and Ecosystem Health to support the externally funded research and inform farmers and landowners through the smartphone apps and innovative web pages. That's $80,000. That'll be at I believe that's for forestry. That'll be an added recommendation. $80,000 there. If you need any of these that you need more information on, I've got the full explanation in the files. That's just the short narrative on each of these. Any questions on that? Okay. Forestry research in 41.6. There's no change recommended there to date. 41.7 is archives. No changes were recommended there. 41.8 is the Radiation Therapy Center. No changes recommended there. Georgia Research Alliance. No changes recommended or received from the governor's recommendations there. Georgia Tech Research Institute. Again, just your standard language. No changes recommended or received there. Marine Institute. You've got the governor's recommendation, and if you'll remember last year, the Senate did not agree with our. One of the things that we put in that they cut is a classic industry in the state of Georgia was the oyster hatcheries and they've done an unbelievable job down there bringing back this industry and they're providing jobs and that kind of thing. It was a fairly small amount of money. It was $150,000. I'm going to recommend that's the Georgia's aquaculture industry. We've spent some time talking to the Senate. Senator Ben Watson will be advocating for that since it is in his district. It was more of a miscommunication than anything else, and at the end of the budget, sometimes things like that get overlooked, so I'm going to recommend that we put that back in for next year. All right, let's see. 41.12 is the Marine Resources Extension Center. Haven't received any proposed changes from the governor's recommendation. 41.13 Medical College, Hospitals and Clinics. No change there to date. 41.14 is Public Libraries. And no changes there either. We don't have any, or I don't have any recommendation there. Now, I do have a lot of library letters. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end with the bond package and that kind of thing. So, but nothing in public libraries right there. 41. Where's that? Oh, I'm sorry. There was an agency transfer from. Yeah, I moved it to central office. It's not a earth-shattering issue. You'll see in 4115 the standard language, but then this is the second half, the Georgia Center for Early Language and Literacy at Georgia College and State University. This was the governor's second part of the governor's recommendation from the supplemental budget, if you remember that. I believe that's the First Lady's program. And everything I've been able to find out about it, it's a spectacular program. So I'm going to continue to recommend that. 41154, this is the residency slots for the Georgia Board of Physicians Workforce, graduate medical education. I do have that list if anybody'd like to see the how these are allocated. If you, Chairman Parrish takes a significant interest in that, but they're pretty much spread out around the state. You can see where they are. You can see where the currently funded GME programs are in the different specialties and that type of thing. But I would recommend that you take a look at that. Very important program. Regent Central Office. This is going to be determined about whether or not that Mr. Downs can come up in here and make a compelling presentation with respect to the central office expenditures. I was told that you had significant training in capacity to do this today. Shelley, are you willing to let him? Okay, well, I'll pass that along to the Chancellor as your recommendation. All right, no changes in the regional center office from the governor's recommendation. 4117 is, wait a minute, where were we? 15. I got to go back to, I'm sorry, folks. I got in 4115, the public service and special funding initiatives. Is that where we have the Georgia Youth Center? As you know, we've taken an interest over the last few years in Georgia Youth Science and Technology Center, Ms. Betsy Green, and the work they do there to train the teachers in STEM programs all across the state. It's a very small program. They're not massive dollars, but the return on investment for Georgia Youth Science and Technology Centers has been significant, especially in our more rural areas, where these are the people who train the teachers in STEM programs. I'm going to make a recommendation for another $250,000 into this program, and what it'll do is it's going to allow the additional funds to subsidize the cost for these smaller school districts, and they'll be able to get the curriculum guides and the training, and they'll bring the capacity for these STEM programs up to a level that we have an expectation are for our students. Not exactly the same as we have in some of the major metro districts, but we will have. And let's just say the return on investment that I've been able to see for this program has been significant, and I'm going to suggest we continue to support that program as they continue to do a really good job. And I've got all the information on that too as you move through it. Budget. All right, the next is the other half of the transfer in 41163. That's from public libraries. That's where it went from public libraries down to the central office. 4117, Skidaway Institute of Oceanography. We don't have anything there. I would suggest you if you ever get a chance here on the coast, go take a look at that. And it's fascinating work that they do down there. I've done it. 4118, this is the teaching section of the Board of Regents. This is a fairly significant portion of the budget, so spend some time in here taking a look at some of the things that are happening in this section. Spend some time with Shelley from the Regents or any of the folks there, and just this is where you get a context on all the things that our universities in this state do. And this is Chairman Jaspers is getting into all this now, and you could just take a look at those numbers. That's a 2 with 9 places on the other side of it there. So that is a big number. The only and this is important, and the only change I'm going to suggest there is language change. And this is this kind of goes back to the concept of, we appropriate, and the Board of Regents themselves in April will come in and allocate university to university. So the language that I'm going to recommend, and this goes along with House Bill 51 and the hearings we've had with respect to Title IX and due process and a safe campus, that the language will read, redirect state funds associated with the 2011 Office of Civil Rights guidance letters and utilize for, here's the key, campus sexual assault awareness prevention, campus counseling, and campus safety. So this is millions of dollars that we've had to spend because of the guidance letters that is not necessarily going to campus safety. So we're going to change due process if we're successful with the other, but regardless, we're going to spend more money on making our campus safer. And we're asking the region, there's no dollar amount attached to this. It's a yes. But we want those millions of dollars that's spent currently on guidance to be spent on prevention and counseling and safety. So I'm going to make that recommendation to us. Any questions on that? And the commitment is to making our campus safer, not just making sure of due process. All right. 4119 is the Vet Med Experiment Station. Don't have any recommendations on that. 19, yes we do, I'm sorry. We do have 2 in there. All right, 4119, you provide funds for 2 clinical field services veterinarians dedicated to food animal practice. That'll be a $310,000 add from the B budget. And 4119, provide funds for 2 technical staff positions for the Poultry Diagnostic Research Laboratory to address disease surveillance and provide surge capacity in the event of a disease outbreak. That'll be $125,000. Again, I have the full write-up on any of these, if anybody has any questions about that. All right, the next is 41.21, payments to Georgia Military College. Don't have any recommendations there. I will let you know that there may be some changes that the Senate has made to our recommendation in the supplemental. I'm going to track that carefully. I think they cut that a little bit. So we cut that some because of the actual cost. I'm not so sure. I want some more information about that. Now, the chairman and I are both supportive of making sure that that appropriation is made. So we're going to look at that and maybe revisit this in the big budget if we need to. Let's see, 4122, payments to Georgia Telecommunications Commission. No changes or no recommendations. Representative Smyrie, I'm glad you're here. We're just walking through the line items. Okay, that finishes off the Board of Regents. Any questions on the Board of Regents and those line items? Yes, sir. Representative Chairman. Let me see, where are you? Try that. Representative Lamb. All right. You know what? That should be working. Try that one. Yeah. It's on, but all right. Hold on. Now try it. Well, it says it's on. Just let me try yours, Richard. Try that. There you go. Sorry.
What you were talking about, Mr. Chairman, the Georgia Military College, the Senate, you said, is cutting some more out of what we already did?
That's my understanding. I haven't had a chance to get deep into it. If you'll remember, we went. It was kind of a round number. We went back in and looked, and everybody agreed that the actual costs were such. What I saw of what the Senate's recommendation was that it was going to split it into 2 separate pieces, one for the Milledgeville side and one for the institution itself, and it cut it a little bit more. What I'm saying is just keep our powder dry with respect to that, and let's make sure that if it's been cut, that there's a reason for it that we agree with as well, because I don't want to see that cut.
Well, I appreciate you watching that closely because I share the same concerns that you did. You know, in this day and age when we're trying to convince students to get a not only good education but a economical one in this huge mess we have with student loans and whatnot, Georgia Military College is doing something really great for kids that don't have other alternatives, but yet gets them on the right track at an extremely economical value, as far as I can tell, as compared to even some of our well-run universities. So I want us to support them when we can.
Couldn't agree more, Representative Fleming. Especially with their the completely open access and the situations these kids come from, and the success they have after 2 years of that program, nobody comes close. So it's pretty. We're going to watch that very closely. Okay, any other questions on the Regents section? What I'm going to continue to suggest before next week, if you see any allocations, any places where we need to spend some time and look at it, if there's funds you think should be spent somewhere or differently, or request or just plain interest you want to express to the agency, now's the forum to do it, and because they've been extremely transparent with us. Anytime we ask for something, that maybe it's just me, but Calvin can tell you for many, many years, one of the most obtuse agencies to get any information out of was the Board of Regents. You'd get buried under piles of paper. That's not the case anymore. And it's, you ask for the information, you get it quickly and in a very clear format, and makes our job a lot easier. So I recommend you take the time to do that if you have questions with them. Okay, I'm going to move on to the Student Finance Commission. 41-1 is the engineer scholarship, no recommended changes. 44.2 is the Georgia Military College scholarship, no recommended changes from the governor. Next is the Hero Scholarship in 44.3. 44.4, it's all the standard things, but then you got the 44.45 is providing funds to develop and maintain a centralized post-secondary grade point average calculation system for HOPE programs. What I've seen of that, it's a tracking mechanism they need to have because you have to maintain the grade point average, and they have to administer that, and it's been a little creaky in the past. This hopefully will streamline that system so that there's a clear and accurate reporting of the grade point averages from the schools, because that's crucial to your ability to maintain the scholarship. So, any questions on that? Yes, Representative Fleming. Try again. What's it?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just along the lines of the Student Finance Commission, I wanted to make the chairman aware of something I think I may have mentioned to him before, but tell the committee. Georgia Military College has a little bit different setup on a quarter system than do some of our other universities, and there's some language in our code section that makes it difficult for them to offer these, I guess I'd say, unique and diverse schedules to students who are working at the same time. And I've got a bill that I've been working on to make it easier for them to receive the same scholarship funds from us that we do for the other schools, by basically saying it's okay for them to be on the quarter system. It's really almost a housekeeping measure, and I want to bring that to the chairman's attention and maybe the committee at a later date. I suspect the speaker may send it to higher ed, but because it deals with the Student Finance Commission, I wanted to make the chair aware of that, and something I'll be talking to you a little bit more about later.
Appreciate that. Well, you got both chairs with that one comment, because that is in Chairman Jasper's and capable hands. I do remember the quarter semester conversion, not in a good way. That was not a fun. I mean, most of you were here for a lot of that, and that wonderful little $20 million a year we put into that conversion for many, many years was a difficult appropriation. I guess you can't run all the issues out of it, and now I'm starting to hear about the intern programs that are difficult, especially in the STEM fields, where it's difficult to run a semester. It puts us at a competitive disadvantage with surrounding states who have quarter systems. Internships in some of those fields run quarter to quarter rather than semester to semester, and it's difficult for some of our students. If you talk to Representative Reeves, he'll talk to you about his time at Tech when they converted that and how difficult it was to navigate those internships. I don't know what the solution is, but that may be something we can look at. I don't have any recommendations even. I know it's beginning to bubble to surface as a conversation. I suspect some of the schools have heard it, and it's just Dean, it'd be something interesting, especially with the engineering fields, and I think that's where most of it is. I've heard it out of the Marietta campus at KSU and others. Just it's difficult to gain some of those internships if you're a semester student rather than a quarter student. I'm open to any kind of recommendation on that. It's just something this committee should look at. And I think it goes along with a little bit of the issue you're having in a different way, Representative Fleming. All right. Okay, where was I? 45.5, Hope GED, no recommended changes. 44.6, the Hope Grant, no recommended changes from the budget that the governor submitted. Hope Scholarships Private, 44.7, no recommended changes there, although you can see there are increasing the award amount for Zell scholarships and the private schools by 3%. That was the governor's recommendation. Hope Scholarship Public Schools, no changes or recommendations, but we are increasing it the same amount there. 44.9, it's low interest loans. No change in the recommendation. Move on when ready. You can see the governor talked about this as well, is $29 million recommendation in that. 44.11, the North Georgia Military Scholarship Grants, no recommended change. 44.12, North Georgia ROTC grants, no recommended changes. Let's see, Eliza. The governor is recommending changing that from $3,000 to $4,000 per year. That hasn't been changed in a long time, so that's a yes on the governor's side of the equation. 44.13, the Public Safety Memorial Grant, no recommended change. The REACH Scholarship is next, no changes. Service cancelable loans. I'm still speaking with Chairman England and Chairman Knight about some possible changes to that, maybe some additional service cancelable loans. You know that we did those last year for some of the large animal, the veterinary piece, and the concept being we need to incentivize more people. If you work in these areas of the state, it's a good idea, and you'll probably like it. You can get your loan canceled if you'll commit to do that. Because there's a demand and less supply, so we may be looking at some additions to that. I don't have it yet, but just if anybody has any interest in that, please let me know. Talk to Chairman Knight as well. That was an initiative he brought to me. You probably have a good handle on that as well. But it was, from everything I've gotten back from what we did last year with those service cancelable loans, very positive experience. So that may be an area as we move forward over the next years to continue to look at. TEG, no recommended changes there. And the 44.17, the Non-Public Post-Secondary Education Commission, no recommended changes there other than the standard language. That does it for student finance, just in the walkthrough. Any questions there? Okay. Next is the Technical College System of Georgia. First is the adult education section. No recommended changes there. Departmental administration is next. No recommended changes to the governor's there. Next is Quick Start, 46.3. We're not recommending any changes to date in that section. 46.4 is technical education. No recommended changes there. I do appreciate the increased formula, 2.2% increase in the square footage. It's sorely needed in the technical college system. It's a pretty short section. They've been very judicious in their request. Any questions on TCSG? Okay. The only other section that generally comes out of our committee is, what I've always done is, when members of this subcommittee have significant interest in the bond package, if you will get those to me, I bring them to the chair and to the speaker, who generally work through that. And that's, I've always tried to give preference to the members of this committee to be able to make their recommendations. I think you've seen that over the years, that generally works out. I mean, I'm not asking you to bring me a major project recommendation. As you know, that generally comes from a different level, but the House will have another $50 million in small caps, and we have the library that we generally put in under that, and I've got significant amount of letters in my file on that, and you know, that's the best way to make your case is to you know, get me the information. There's a big long list, and unless you put a name and a face to it and you know, tell me about it, it's generally doesn't raise up on the radar. So please get those to me. And let me advocate to you that anything in this tracking sheet is what I want to hear from this committee on. I mean, you've heard from constituents, you've heard from agencies or schools, and there's things we need to talk about. Let's bring them here. We'll bring them to the next one when we do it next week. I'm not sure which day, but when we meet next week, we'll meet to talk about this, not quite in that much depth. If there are any changes from this, I'll point those out. But at that point, I'll ask you for a motion to move this to the full committee as a recommendation. Did I miss anything? Any members of the committee have any? Yes, sir. Yeah, right. Yes. Yes, it would. Yes, sir. So just let me know what you're thinking, please. Those are up to $5 million. Usually there may be a little bit of, and remember, one of the ways that we've done that is if you have something that may be important, but it helps to balance it with the Senate, and you've got a good relationship with a senator that has good relationships on the appropriations side. If you have a $5 million project in the small cap, and we do $2.5 million in the House, and they do $2.5 million in the Senate, that leaves more room for your colleagues in the House to get something started. I do caution you, don't bring me a half if you don't have a solid commitment from a senator, because the easiest way to get that bumped and us lose the money overall is we send it over there, then the Senate will scoop it all up. So I've always suggested that you get a written commitment and that they've talked to the chairman over there on the Senate side. If you're looking at a half, I like those. I just want to trust but verify. How's that? Good. So, all right. Well, nothing else. We'll adjourn from the day. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming.